And now, Politico's Jonathan Martin, who's been all over the story. Jonathan, thank you for being with us.
Good, John.
Let's start first with this political conversation that has erupted here. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, it's happening in different places, whether the politicians want to wade into it or not. Right. Give me your sense of how quickly this took place and whether that's part of the new normal or whether there's something particular going on here.
Well, John, the world that we're in is not dictated anymore by what a politician says or what a party says. There are actors that are just as important now in our sort of conversation, and instantaneously, or nearly instantaneously, after the sad news came out Saturday afternoon, the debate erupted. I think chiefly on Twitter now, which is where a lot of this takes place, John, because it is a sort of real-time forum. And the left wanted to point a finger at Sarah Palin and sort of cast aspersions on her for some of the things that she said in the past as sort of fostering a culture and creating the conditions under which this took place. Now, soon after that, the right, understandably, hit back and saying, this apparently is one crazed person. She has nothing whatsoever to do with this. And from that point, it was on. No longer does this sort of debate wait until the next day's paper or that night's news, or even say perhaps 1 or 2 days to sort of give the families and the victims some sort of respectful period. It's instantaneous now.
Let me reverse the question I asked Mark Meckler, which was, some people would say you've got to play. The conversation's happening. You have to talk about it or else you get defined. Others would say, by saying anything, issuing any kind of statement, you are accepting the premise of the charge, which is that the Tea Party has whipped up all these people, created this atmosphere, and that connects it to the... What do you do?
Well, look, I think assassination by its very nature is political. And so I think the parties recognize that, and they're not going to be defined here. And so I think that's why you see almost instantaneously now, because of our technology, how it works now, it's faster, but still, it's the same sort of jockeying that we saw after Oklahoma City in '95. But it's just faster now because of where we are living online. But it's the same thing in terms of we're trying to portray the other side as, implicitly having a part in this, and the other side is saying, heck no, we didn't do this. That's totally irresponsible. But of course it's all political. That's going to be inevitable in all this.
Sarah Palin was in the discussion because during the campaign she put out a map that had crosshairs.
Correct.
That picked the 20 districts in which Democrats had been elected, but McCain had won in those districts. Now, Congressman Giffords' district was one of those districts. That's why Palin was in the conversation. How did Team Palin handle this, and how did they handle it?
This is one of the examples, John, where her not having any kind of infrastructure whatsoever is very damaging to her, because there is no sort of strategy as to how to respond to major news events, because there really is no sort of team of advisors, and in any organized way at least. It's been sort of scattershot. I mean, I think one of her advisors went on a talk radio podcast on Saturday and tried to make the case that those crosshairs were not bullseyes for a gun, but actually a surveyor's mark, which is a sort of implausible attempt at spin. But putting that aside, it only sort of made the sort of focus on her more intense. And since then, Sarah Palin has issued an email to Glenn Beck calling for, or saying that she only wants to see more peace and less violence. But clearly they're trying to find their footing here on strategy, on pushback, because she doesn't want to sort of take the blame on this, understandably, but at the same time, she doesn't want to weigh in and inflame an already very delicate situation.
Well, and as you, I believe, are the first to report, the reason the surveyor's mark notion is implausible is because Palin herself called these marks bullseyes.
Right.
And so the question is whether, if you traffic in conversation of bullseyes and targeting, and Congresswoman Giffords' opponent had a gun shoot in which they used that kind of term. Is there an opportunity for a politician? Any politician who wades into this is automatically on one side or the other. And this debate has, there was an existing debate, and all the facts are now just being marshaled into that existing debate. Is there an opportunity for any politician to seize the moment, sort of draw the lines here, make some sense of this?
I think there could be, but again, anybody that does that is going to be fingered as having some kind of political motivation, because that's the very nature of politics. Because they're politicians, they want to sort of seize some kind of advantage. But sure, there's an opportunity for somebody to say, look, it's time for us to sort of step back, be more civil, be more mature in our political conversation. But call me a cynic, John, I'm not confident that that's going to last all that long. I mean, I think as the weeks and months go by here, I think all the incentives in our system are geared towards being more provocative, more bombastic. And as this thing, this tragedy, I should say, gets further and further in the rearview mirror, I think politicians are going to sort of come back to that, sadly, that system that is set up to reward being provocative and being even at times outlandish. So I think in the days and weeks ahead, you'll see a sort of a cooling off period. But in the long term, I'm not very optimistic.
Somebody's going to have to, as you say, when all the directions are pointing to another round in tit for tat, somebody's going to have to go against that and see if that gets, if there's some advantage, political advantage to be gained by going against the.
There is for now. There is for now, certainly, because you can sort of be that lonely voice now saying, let us now come together, as LBJ used to say. But in the long term, though, John, I'm just not certain, given the intensity of our political media culture, that person is going to get rewarded like somebody on the far right or far left is for saying things that are provocative.
Last question, which is about the president. President Obama has talked a lot about civility in discourse. He ran a campaign on it. This was his theme before it was in the conversation because of this tragic event. There is some reporting that the White House is thinking about a speech. Yeah. The White House is pushing, at least in my conversation with him now, saying, hey, that's premature. We're taking this day to day. Whether they plan a special speech or not, he's got the State of the Union. Yes. You would expect him. So just briefly, give us the kind of treachery or the problems or what your guess is about what the White House does.
It's a very tough needle to thread for the White House, because clearly they want to seize this moment, because it does provide a opportunity to reinforce his brand, which is the sort of post-partisan Obama that we heard so much about in 07 and 08. But at the same time, they don't want to be seen as trying to sort of take advantage of what is a personal tragedy for so many people. How do they do that? I think part of that is you wait a few days. It can't be done too soon. That's why you're getting the pushback, John. They don't want to be seen as sort of moving too fast to try and put him out in the spotlight. This is not about the president right now. But I think in the weeks ahead, I think you'll absolutely see the president try to sort of get out there and make sense of this for the American people.
Excellent. Jonathan Martin of Politico, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.